And welcome back. Let's see here. Sherman, watching Free Speech TV in Inglewood, California. Hey, Sherman, what's on your mind? Sherman, you are on the air. You're watching Free Speech TV on Dish Network. You have to listen to your phone because there's about a 30-second delay or so between...
hello.
Yeah, okay. We're on the air.
I want you to know I've read your book, Crash of 2016, and I was in your audience when you appeared in Santa Monica.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
nice
now...
to hear from you.
I think the president's proposal to, support junior college education finance is good, but it doesn't go far enough.
Yeah.
And what the person who would take this further is Elizabeth Warren, and I wish that her book were in your background above The Crash of 2016, A Fighting Chance by Elizabeth Warren. But,
Go ahead. If you're listening to your TV, it's going to totally confuse you. You got to turn down the TV. So you were saying, Sherman, you said, but.
Oh yeah, I was born in 1931, so I lived through the Roosevelt administration and the New Deal.
Wow.
And Henry Ford and I was living in Detroit on his own initiative. Raised the wages to $5 a day.
Right, from $1.
That forced the other industries to also raise their wages.
Yep.
And the Ford Motor Company prospered.
You're right.
By paying their workers more. And I was in a community where many people were working at Ford's. And even though I was just a child, I can recall that things were getting better and better throughout the New Deal.
Yep.
And I think it's a shame that Roosevelt was bad-mouthed so much, and somehow we don't have schools named after Franklin Roosevelt. We've got one Roosevelt High School here in Los Angeles County, but it's named after Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, that's interesting. The Republican. Yeah, there's the Reagan Legacy Project was put together by a bunch of very wealthy Republicans after Reagan left office to try to name a building or a road or a bridge, some consequential landmark, or put up a statue in a conspicuous place in every single county in the United States and in every single country in the world. And they have done so much to whitewash and polish and frankly lie about the legacy of Ronald Reagan. It's astonishing. And there was no FDR Legacy Project. People like yourself who are old enough to remember FDR, by and large, absolutely loved him. I mean, he was real. He was elected president 4 times. It doesn't get any better than that. But he took on the rich people. So there was no group of rich people who said, "Hey, let's get together and put up a monument everywhere." And it's really a shame. Sherman, thank you for the call, and thanks for sharing your recollections and experience with us. I appreciate it. It is 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back. Before the hour, what would you like to hear in the State of the Union address? Jason in Arlington, Virginia. What would you like to hear, Jason?
I'd just like to see the president come out and say, look, we put this ethanol subsidy in, passed by Al Gore, which is an environmental disaster. We grow an area the size of North Carolina to stick in gas tanks, and we're going to end it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And here's the other problem with the ethanol subsidy is that the ethanol subsidy is basically a corn subsidy. And when you combine that with the corn subsidies for sugar, for high fructose corn syrup coming out of sugar, which is the reason why the United States moved from cane sugar to this new chemical. It's not a naturally occurring compound, high fructose corn syrup. It is driving an epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes and cancer and God only knows what kinds of diseases, in my opinion, in this country. I may be wrong. I'm not a scientist, but it certainly looks that way to me. And yeah, do away with all the subsidies. Joni Ernst, who's giving the Republican rebuttal tonight, her family took almost $500,000 from the federal government in welfare for farmers. She might do a great job of cutting the balls off pigs, but she is a welfare queen extraordinaire, and I'm just astonished that the Republicans put that person up for their, to give their. She actually is a welfare queen, right? I mean, $400 and some odd $1,000. That's pretty good. Winston in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Hey, Winston, what's up?
Hi, good afternoon, Tom. I just wish to make a comment that I think Neil McCabe, the gentleman who had great difficulty defending his positions, I think, he said that we ought not be concerned about, how people made their money as long as they're rich. I think we ought to be, because we have people like, let's say, the guy Madoff, who made billions, and he was a crook. Should we not be concerned about how people make their money?
Yeah. Yeah,
I think it's a moral question.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you look at, banksters who made their money basically hustling home loans to people who couldn't afford them, and now they're doing it with car loans and student loans. You've got, there's no shortage of, the payday lending industry is just astonishing. The horrible rip off that they do, where people borrow $500 and end up paying back $2,000 and they're still in debt. It's not. You're absolutely right, Winston. Excellent point. Thank you for that. Chris in Minneapolis. Hey, Chris, thanks for listening to 950 AM. What's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you? I finally found something I can agree with you on, the subsidies for corn.
Pardon?
I said I finally found something that we kind of agree on, the subsidies for corn.
Okay.
But I wanted to talk to you. You talked about, I'm not sure how much time you're going to give me, but you always mention about corporations shipping jobs overseas. But then you turn around and say that corporations don't create jobs. Well, that's not true. Corporations do create jobs. I mean, look at what Bill Gates did, Steve Jobs, Henry Ford. All of those are people that...
No, wait a second, Chris. Wait a second.
Yep.
If nobody bought Bill Gates' product, how many people would he have hired?
Nobody.
Okay, so Bill Gates didn't create jobs. The people who bought his products did.
But he created the product that people wanted.
Right. Well, you've got to do that, but that doesn't... But that doesn't mean, and not only that, Bill Gates is a welfare queen. The reason why Microsoft has such a lock on the market is because they're using patent, copyright, and trademark laws, which are basically monopoly laws. They lock out competitors.
That's fine. But your point is wrong about corporations not creating jobs. I own my own company. I create jobs by doing it. I took a risk, started my own company, and hired people.
So do I.
Okay, but if you weren't there, somebody else would be there to do it.
No, maybe not. I mean, I just don't know. I have started seven businesses in my life. 5 of them successful, and 2 of them really successful, and one that just went down in flames. I'm somewhat familiar with how this works, and I know that if I don't have customers for my product,
you created the vehicle to hire people. You created the vehicle to hire people. If it wouldn't have been for what you did as a person, those people wouldn't have jobs. If nobody took the risk, if nobody like me or you took a risk to take...
But that is no reason to deify me and give me a lower tax rate. And the fact of the matter is that I don't get a lower tax rate because I'm the owner of a small business like you are. Chris, let me finish. I'm guessing you and I are both small business owners, and I'm guessing, therefore, neither one of us can take our income in the form of capital gains. And so we both take our income as salaries, so we're both subject to a maximum 39% tax rate rather than a maximum 23% tax rate if it was capital gains. Mitt Romney has the Mitt Romney loophole. There's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Well, okay, we're talking about something completely separate now. I didn't talk about that. I talk about corporations creating jobs, but for President Obama paid 18% interest on his taxes. So you can't say that just Mitt Romney did.
Well, that's the point. I mean, while Republicans are cutting back on the budget for the Internal Revenue Service, so if you try to call the IRS to get advice on how do you do your taxes, you could be on hold for a half a day right now because Republicans have cut their budget so badly. However, anybody who's got an income of over $150,000 a year in this country and can afford to have a CPA, they don't have to worry about that. And that's the Republican rationale. Yeah, sure, we'll cut the IRS because the only people who turn to the IRS for help doing their taxes are people people making less than $50,000-$60,000 a year who can't afford the cost of a CPA. Or I don't know what H&R Block charges these days, but in any case, it's crazy. Chris, thank you for the call. Terry in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Terry, just a minute to the break. You had a suggestion about infrastructure?
I question what he said about, I heard it on the news, that it's going to be a private-public cooperation, and when cities and towns are struggling to meet their budgets, they don't need a loan that they're going to have to pay back. Or what are they going to do, sell the town if the economy changes? In North Carolina, they brought in some Spanish company to do road work, and they're talking about toll roads.
Yeah.
And that money's going to go to Spain.
I understand. And that's, by the way, happening all over the country. And not just with roads, but also with water systems, electric systems, and septic systems, all things that should be considered public infrastructure rather than private profit opportunities. I don't disagree with you. That said, I think what President Obama is proposing is bonds. And public-private with regard to bonds is a little bit of verbal jujitsu. You could argue that the Treasury Department right now is public-private because private individuals buy treasuries, in other words, loan money to the government, and then the government uses that money to do things. And in this case, they would be issuing bonds for infrastructure. So I don't think it's going to be quite as pernicious as you say, but let's wait and see, A. And B, it doesn't matter anyway because the Republicans won't let it get passed through Congress. Terry, thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of science and green news. You need to know this. Last year's massive chemical spill in West Virginia had a much bigger effect than anyone realized. According to a new study by U.S. Geological Survey researchers, the 10,000 gallons of MCHM, the chemical responsible for contaminating drinking water in West Virginia, actually traveled as far as Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. While it may seem obvious that the chemical made its way downstream, researchers say that crude MCHM was found nearly 400 miles away from the incident. The USGS researchers explained that these findings are very important when it comes to spill response in the future and what role the U.S. government should play when contaminated water crosses state lines. In addition to proving the importance of oversight, the Freedom Industries spill showed how easily weak regulations on one chemical plant can threaten the lives of many Americans.